Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. Lauren had a way of making me feel small. It wasn't the kind of obvious, screaming into your face kind of abuse. No, it was subtle, calculated. A quiet erosion of my confidence. A slow, methodical chipping away at who I was until I barely recognized myself. And the worst part? I let it happen. It started with little things. A sigh when I spoke about work. A smirk when I talked about a new investment I was researching. "That's cute, Jake," she'd say when I told her about a stock I was considering. "But leave the big money to people who actually take risks." She worked in pharmaceuticals, and she never let me forget it. I negotiate with high-powered doctors and medical executives every day. She'd remind me, swirling her wine. "Your job is basically just gambling with other people's money." I let those comments slide at first, thinking they were just harmless jokes. But over time, they grew sharper, more dismissive. And then they weren't jokes anymore. One evening, after I spent hours setting up a home office for her, installing shelves, rearranging furniture, even buying a new ergonomic chair, she barely looked up from her laptop. "Took you long enough," she muttered, typing away. I forced a chuckle. "You're welcome." She glanced at me with a smirk. "Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive. I appreciate it. You're just not exactly the fastest." I let it go like I always did. But the moment that finally shattered the illusion came at her company's annual gala. She had insisted we go, even though I hated those kinds of events, lavish gatherings where everyone competed to sound more important than they really were. I went, of course, because that's what a supportive husband does. We arrived at the hotel ballroom, where servers floated through the crowd with trays of champagne, and executives exchanged fake smiles. I stood beside Lauren as she introduced me to her colleagues, and for the first half hour, I played my part perfectly, smiling, nodding, shaking hands. Then it happened. Lauren's boss, a silver-haired man with a booming voice, turned to me and asked, "So, Jake, what do you do?" Before I could answer, Lauren laughed. "Oh, Jake plays with numbers all day. He sits in his office and watches little charts go up and down." The group chuckled. My stomach tightened. Her boss raised an eyebrow. "Financial analyst, right?" I nodded, opening my mouth to explain more, but Lauren cut in again. Yeah. It's like he's a glorified day trader, except with less risk and more spreadsheets." The laughter grew louder. I stood there, gripping my champagne glass, so tightly I thought it might shatter. I could feel my face burning, feel the way the eyes around me flickered with amusement. I wasn't a man in that moment. I was a joke, the punchline to my own wife's twisted sense of humor. I turned to Lauren, my voice low but firm. "Can I talk to you for a second?" She blinked at me like I was overreacting. "Jake, come on, don't be weird." I clenched my jaw. "Now." She sighed dramatically, excusing herself from the group before following me a few steps away. "What?" she asked, exasperated. I stared at her, my hands balled into fists at my sides. "Do you even hear yourself?" Lauren rolled her eyes. "Oh, for God's sake, Jake. It was a joke. A joke," I repeated, my voice flat. "You humiliated me in front of your entire company." She scoffed. "Oh, please. You're being sensitive. No one took it seriously." I took it seriously, I shot back. "Do you have any idea what it feels like to have your wife treat you like a damn idiot in front of a room full of people?" Her expression hardened. "Oh, grow up, Jake. This is why I have to do everything in this marriage. You're too emotional." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "You don't do everything, Lauren. You just take all the credit while tearing me down in the process." She crossed her arms. "And what exactly do you contribute, huh? Because from where I'm standing, I'm the one with the important job. I'm the one who actually matters." That was it. The final crack in the foundation. I exhaled slowly and straightened my shoulders. "I'm leaving." Lauren's smug expression faltered for the first time. "Oh, stop being dramatic." "No," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I mean it. I'm done." She stared at me like she couldn't comprehend what I was saying. "Jake, you're not actually serious." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Watch me." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in the middle of her perfect little gala. That night, as I drove home, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. For too long, I had let Lauren dictate my worth. Let her words chip away at my confidence until I believed them. But I wasn't small. I wasn't weak. And I was about to prove it. Lauren came home late that night, long after I had already changed into sweats and was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV. I heard the front door open, followed by the unmistakable sound of her heels clacking against the hardwood floor. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, probably waiting for me to acknowledge her, to start a fight, to react in some way that she could use against me. I didn't. She sighed loudly, setting her purse down on the counter with a deliberate thud. Are we seriously doing this, Jake? I muted the TV and turned to face her. Doing what? She crossed her arms, narrowing her eyes. Acting like children. I let out a short laugh. Oh, so now I'm the one acting childish. Lauren rolled her eyes. Jake, you stormed out of a party because of one little joke. You embarrassed me in front of my colleagues. Do you have any idea how unprofessional that looked? I leaned back, studying her. I embarrassed you? Yes, she snapped. You overreacted, and now I'm going to have to deal with questions about why my husband can't take a joke. I exhaled, shaking my head. You know what, Lauren? I think I finally get it. Her lips pressed together. Get what? That nothing I do will ever be good enough for you, I said, my voice steady. No matter how much I support you, no matter how many sacrifices I make, you'll always find a way to tear me down. And the worst part? You don't even see it. She scoffed, waving a hand dismissively. Oh, give me a break, Jake. You always make yourself a victim. I stood up slowly, feeling an unfamiliar strength settle in my chest. That's because I am the victim. You treat me like I'm beneath you, like my career, my opinions, my very existence is some inconvenience you have to tolerate. I took a step closer. You think I don't notice the way you look at me? The way you roll your eyes when I talk? The way you make fun of me in front of your friends just to make yourself look better? Lauren hesitated just for a second, but it was enough. I had finally caught her off guard. You used to be different, I continued. Or maybe I just wanted to believe you were. But now, I see you for who you really are. She recovered quickly, folding her arms across her chest. And who is that, Jake? A woman who thinks she's too good for her own husband. Lauren's jaw tightened. That's not true. I tilted my head. Isn't it? Silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken truths. Then, she huffed out a breath and turned toward the stairs. I don't have time for this. I have an early flight tomorrow. That caught me off guard. Flight. She glanced over her shoulder. I told you, remember? Miami. Conference. No, she hadn't told me. At least, not in any meaningful way. I frowned. And when were you planning on mentioning this? She rolled her eyes. Oh, come on. I travel all the time for work. Why does it even matter? I folded my arms. Who are you going with? She smirked. Why? You don't trust me. That was it. That was the moment I knew. The way she said it. The way her eyes gleamed with something daring, something cruel. I kept my expression unreadable. Should I? Lauren didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned fully to face me, her lips curving into a slow, smug smile. I'm using this trip to have a little fun with someone new, she said casually, like she was discussing the weather. I just don't want to lie to you about it. My stomach dropped, but I didn't let it show. I stayed perfectly still, perfectly composed, even as my blood turned to ice. You're joking, I said, testing her. She shrugged. I could have lied, but I figured I'd be honest. You'll just have to deal with it. There was no guilt in her voice. No hesitation. No sign that she even considered what she was saying to be wrong. She wanted me to react. She wanted to see me angry, hurt, desperate. But I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I forced a small, almost amused smile. All right. Lauren's eyes narrowed slightly. All right. I nodded, taking a slow sip of my drink. Yeah, if that's what you want, go for it. She studied me, searching for some kind of weakness, some crack in my composure. When she didn't find one, she tossed her hair over her shoulder and scoffed. I knew you wouldn't do anything about it. And with that, she turned and walked upstairs. I stayed on the couch, staring at the muted TV screen, my mind racing. Lauren thought she had all the power in this situation. She thought she could walk all over me, humiliate me, announce her betrayal to my face, and I would just take it. She had no idea. She thought she was about to cheat on her husband. She didn't realize she was about to destroy her own life instead. Lauren had always been arrogant, but this was something else entirely. She didn't just plan to cheat. She wanted me to know. She looked me in the eye and dared me to do something about it. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken. No, that part of me had died a long time ago. But because my mind was already working, turning over every possible way to make her regret ever thinking she could do this to me. By morning, I had a plan. Lauren was already up, strutting around the bedroom like she was the star of her own movie. She barely glanced at me as she packed her suitcase, humming to herself as if she hadn't just thrown our marriage in the trash. She zipped up the bag, turned to me, and said, "Try not to miss me too much." I smirked. "Oh, I won't." Her eyes flickered with something. Confusion, maybe? But she quickly masked it with a smug smile. "I'll see you Sunday." I nodded, watching her walk out the door like she wasn't leaving to stab me in the back. The second she was gone, I grabbed my laptop and got to work. Lauren was careless, too confident in herself to bother covering her tracks. I logged into our share bank account and pulled up her company credit card statement. She had used the same card for years, and she had never once thought twice about it. Big mistake. A few clicks later, I was scrolling through her recent transactions. Flights booked through her company's travel portal. A 5-star hotel reservation at the Fontainebleau in Miami, charged directly to her corporate account. Dinner reservations, spa appointments, everything paid for on her employer's dime. I smiled to myself. Perfect. Next, I needed to know exactly who she was meeting. Lauren had given me just enough information to piece it together. A doctor at the conference. That narrowed things down. I checked her email. She was sloppy with her passwords, and I knew most of them. It took me less than 2 minutes to find the thread. Dr. Mark Calloway. I did a quick search and found his LinkedIn profile. A well-respected cardiologist from Chicago. Married. 2 kids. Lauren wasn't just about to cheat. She was about to get involved with someone who had just as much to lose as she did. I sat back, cracking my knuckles. Now, it was just a matter of setting the dominoes in place. First, I forwarded all the incriminating emails to myself. I made sure to include the one where she explicitly wrote, "I can't wait to see you. I'll book us a suite at the hotel. My company will cover it." That one was going to be especially useful. Then, I drafted an email to her company's finance department. Subject: urgent. Possible misuse of corporate funds, ****. I wanted to bring something to your attention regarding a recent employee expense report. It appears that Lauren has been using company funds for unauthorized personal expenses during an upcoming work trip. Attached are screenshots of relevant bookings and communications. I thought it would be best to escalate this before any policy violations occur. I attached all the evidence and hit send. Next, I found Dr. Calloway's wife on social media. Her profile was private, but her email was listed on a public school fundraiser she had posted about. I took a deep breath and started typing. "Hi, Mrs. Calloway. I don't know how to say this, but I thought you should know that your husband has been making plans with my wife, Lauren, during this upcoming medical conference in Miami. I've attached proof, including messages and hotel reservations. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but you deserve to know." I added the screenshots and pressed send. The pieces were moving now, each step bringing me closer to the moment Lauren's world would come crashing down. By the time she arrived at the hotel, expecting a romantic night with her new lover, she wouldn't even see the disaster heading her way. Her corporate card? About to be frozen. Her employer? Investigating her for fraud. Dr. Calloway's wife? A ticking time bomb, ready to explode the moment she read that email. Lauren thought she was about to have the weekend of her dreams. Instead, she was about to lose everything. Lauren's flight took off that afternoon. She sent me a single text before boarding. "Made it to the airport. Be good while I'm gone." Winky face. I didn't respond. She thought she was in control, that I was sitting at home, stewing in silence while she strutted off to Miami to betray me without consequence. She had no idea that her entire world was already beginning to unravel. By the time she landed, the wheels were in motion. The email to her company's finance department had already been flagged for review, and I had received an automatic reply thanking me for bringing the issue to their attention. It wouldn't take long for them to connect the dots. Personal expenses charged to a corporate card, a five-star hotel reserved for two, and proof straight from her own emails that she was using company funds to bankroll her little affair. Dr. Calloway's wife had also seen my message. She hadn't replied, but I knew she had opened the email. Tracking receipts confirmed it. Whether she was processing the shock or planning her own counterattack, I had no doubt she would be making a move soon. Now all I had to do was wait. Lauren landed in Miami late in the afternoon and checked into Fontainebleau shortly after. She texted me again, clearly enjoying herself. "The hotel is amazing. Maybe I'll bring you here someday." Winky face. I stared at the message, then chuckled to myself. "Oh, you won't be bringing anyone anywhere." Hours passed, and then, finally, the moment I had been waiting for. Lauren called. I let it ring twice before answering, keeping my voice calm. "Hey." Her voice was sharp, frantic. "Jake, something's wrong with my company card." I leaned back in my chair, biting back a smirk. "Oh, yes, oh," she snapped. I tried checking in, and the payment got declined. Twice. I called the card company, and they transferred me to HR. I stayed silent, waiting. They told me I'm under investigation for misuse of corporate funds. "Jake, what the hell is going on?" I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of her words settle between us. "Wow, that sounds serious." She inhaled sharply. "You knew." I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to feel the silence, to let the dread creep in before I confirmed what she already suspected. Then, finally, I said, "Of course I knew." Lauren's breath hitched. "You did this." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. I just sent them some interesting receipts. They connected the dots, all on their own. "You ruined everything," she hissed. I smiled. "No, Loudon. You did." Her breathing was uneven now, panicked. "Jake, listen, you don't understand. I could lose my job over this." I laughed. "Yeah, you probably will." "Jake, please," she said, her voice shaking now. "You don't have to do this." I tilted my head. "Oh, but I do. Because you sure as hell didn't have to cheat. But you did. And now, you get to deal with the consequences." "Jake, Whatever excuse she was about to come up with was cut off by a shout in the background. A woman's voice. My grin widened. "Right on time. You disgusting, home-wrecking piece of trash." There was a crash, glass shattering, maybe a drink being thrown, and then Lauren's voice rose in pure panic. "What the hell? Who are you?" Dr. Calloway's wife had arrived. I didn't need to be there to picture it. Lauren, standing in the middle of the hotel lobby, completely blindsided as an enraged woman, stormed toward her. Guests turning to watch. Staff stepping back. Security hesitating, unsure if they should intervene. Then, the wife's voice again, furious and shaking. "You thought I wouldn't find out? You thought you could sneak around with my husband like some cheap mistress?" I could hear Lauren sputtering, scrambling for control. "I don't know what you're talking about." Another crash. I could barely contain my laughter. Lauren had spent years making me feel small, making me feel like I was nothing. And now, she was the one being humiliated, the one scrambling for dignity while the world watched. The phone rustled as if she was trying to cover it, but I still heard her voice, frantic now. "Jake, I need you to—" I interrupted. "Oh no, Lauren. You made it very clear you don't need me." "Jake." I hung up. Then I leaned back, exhaled, and smiled. Lauren thought she was untouchable. She thought she could betray me and walk away without consequence. Instead, she had lost everything before she even had the chance to cheat. I didn't hear from Lauren for the rest of the night. No texts, no calls, just silence. I imagined her standing there in the middle of that luxury hotel lobby, dripping with whatever drink had been thrown at her, eyes darting around as strangers whispered and stared. She had spent years making me feel like I wasn't enough, making me believe I was the one who should be grateful to have her. Now, she was the one humiliated, powerless, and I was finally free. The next morning, my phone buzzed. I half expected it to be Lauren, but it wasn't. It was Mike. "Dude, check your email. You're gonna love this." Curious, I opened my inbox. At the top was a forwarded email from one of our mutual friends, someone who worked in corporate circles and had access to industry gossip. Subject: Lauren's in trouble. I clicked it, and my smirk widened as I read. It was an internal memo from Lauren's company, sent out to senior staff. Effective immediately, Lauren is under formal investigation for misuse of corporate funds. Due to the nature of the claims, she has been placed on administrative leave pending further review. Administrative leave. That was corporate speak for your career is circling the drain. I took a sip of my coffee, leaning back in my chair. I had expected them to act fast, but this was quicker than I could have hoped. The evidence I sent must have been damning enough to force them into action immediately. Then, as if the universe wanted to add an extra dose of satisfaction to my morning, my phone rang. Lauren. I let it ring twice before answering, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. Hello. There was silence for a moment, then a deep inhale. Jake. She sounded different. The usual confidence, the smug undertone that always laced her words, was gone. In its place was something raw, something unsteady. Lauren, I said casually. How's Miami? She let out a sharp breath. You know damn well how it is. Doi. Amused, sipping my coffee. Last I heard, you were off to have some fun. There was a long pause. When she finally spoke again, her voice was tight. Jake, I need you to fix this. I almost laughed. Fix this? You mean the mess you made? Her voice wavered. You don't understand. I'm on leave. They're talking about terminating me. I smiled to myself. Sounds like a you problem. Jake, she snapped, her frustration mounting. Do you have any idea what's at stake here? My job, my reputation. Oh, now you care about your reputation? I cut in. Where was that concern when you told me, to my face, that you were going to cheat on me? Where was that fear when you booked a company-paid hotel room for you and your little fling? She swallowed hard. It was a mistake. No, I said flatly. A mistake is sending a text to the wrong person. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This was a choice. She was quiet. I let the silence stretch, savoring it. Then I decided to twist the knife just a little more. By the way, how's Dr. Calloway's wife? I imagine she had some choice word for you last night. Lauren sucked in a sharp breath. You had no right to involve her. I chuckled. And you had no right to go after her husband. Actions have consequences, Lauren. I heard her breathing quicken, like she was fighting back tears. Jake, please. I tilted my head. Please? Now, she was begging? The same woman who had spent years belittling me, treating me like I was beneath her, now sounded like she was drowning. But I wasn't going to save her. You made your bed, I said coldly. Enjoy lying in it. And then, just like the night before, I hung up. Lauren had spent our entire marriage treating me like I was disposable. Now, she was the one being discarded. Lauren came home 2 days later. No triumphant return, no smug smile, no condescending remarks about how much better she was than me. She walked through the front door like a ghost of herself. Hair unkempt, dark circles under her eyes, her usual pristine posture replaced with something slumped, defeated. I barely looked up from my laptop as I sat at the kitchen table. Back so soon. She exhaled sharply, dropping her suitcase by the door. Jake, we need to talk. I clicked my trackpad, scrolling through my emails. Do we? Her voice tensed. This isn't funny. I closed my laptop and finally met her gaze. You're right. It's hilarious. Her nostrils flared. Do you have any idea what I've been dealing with? I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Oh, you mean losing your job? Having security escort you out of your precious corporate office? Or was it the part where your little fling's wife turned you into public enemy number one? Lauren swallowed hard, her hands gripping the counter. Jake, please. I know I cut her off. You don't get to play the victim now. Her face twisted somewhere between anger and desperation. I messed up. I know that. I scoffed. Messed up? Lauren, you looked me in the eye and told me you were going to cheat. You expected me to just take it. She hesitated. I stood up slowly, the chair scraping against the floor. Tell me, Lauren, was it worth it? Was it fun? Destroying your marriage, your career, your entire life? Her eyes darted away, jaw clenched. She didn't have an answer. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You spent years making me feel like I was beneath you, like I was lucky to have you. And now, I gestured around. You have nothing. No job. No reputación. No backup plan. Her lips parted, and for a second, I thought she might actually cry. But then she straightened, lifting her chin. I still have this house. I laughed. Oh, you think so? Her confidence wavered. What does that mean? I smirked. It means I already filed for divorce. And since I paid for this house, guess who's keeping it? Panic flickered in her eyes. Jake, you can't just— I can, I said smoothly. And I will. She blinked rapidly, as if trying to process the fact that her safety net was slipping away. I turned back to my laptop, opening it again. Pack your things, Lauren. Her voice cracked. Where am I supposed to go? I didn't even look at her. Not my problem. She stood there for a moment, breathing unevenly. Then, without another word, she turned and walked upstairs. An hour later, she left, suitcase in hand. No advice, no party shots, just silence. And for the first time in years, I felt completely free. Lauren was gone, but the battle wasn't over. I knew her too well to think she would just accept defeat and disappear quietly. No, she wasn't the type to bow out gracefully. She was the type to cling, to scratch and fight for whatever control she could salvage. And sure enough, she made her first move a week later. I was at work when I got the call from my lawyer. Jake, we have a problem. I leaned back in my chair. Let me guess. Lauren's contesting the divorce. Not just contesting, he sighed. She's demanding spousal support. I laughed, rubbing my forehead. Spousal support? She cheated. She lost her job because of her own choices. And now she wants me to pay for it. Pretty much, he said. She's claiming that she's financially dependent on you now, and that since you make more, you should help maintain the lifestyle she's accustomed to. I gritted my teeth. Of course. This was classic Lauren. She never took responsibility, never accepted consequences. She had spent years making me feel like I was the one holding her back, yet now that she had nothing, she suddenly wanted my help. What are our options? I asked. She has no case, my lawyer said firmly. Between the infidelity, the evidence of her using company funds for personal expenses, and the fact that she admitted everything in writing, no judge is going to rule in her favor. But she's clearly trying to drag this out, hoping you'll settle just to make her go away. I exhaled slowly, tapping my fingers against the desk. Let her try. For the next few weeks, Lauren did exactly that. She fought. She filed motions, made accusations, tried to spin the narrative in her favor. She told anyone who would listen that I had ruined her life, that I had set her up, that I had trapped her in a situation that cost her everything. I ignored it, because I knew the truth. And when the day finally came to face her in court, I walked in knowing exactly how this was going to end. Lauren sat across from me at the long conference table in the attorney's office, her hair pulled back into a tight bun, her nails tapping nervously against the table. She looked thinner, like stress had eaten away at her usual sharp confidence. I barely recognized her. Her lawyer spoke first. Lauren is seeking a fair division of assets, including temporary financial support, until she can reestablish her career. My lawyer didn't even blink. Lauren is entitled to nothing. She was unfaithful, engaged in financial misconduct, and lost her job due to her own actions. We have documented evidence, including company statements, emails, and witness testimony. Lauren shifted in her chair, arms crossed. Jake, don't do this, she said quietly. I looked at her for a long moment, then said, Do what, Lauren? Hold you accountable. She swallowed hard. I need help. I tilted my head. You told me I wasn't good enough for you, that I was weak, that I was lucky to have you. I gestured around the room. And now, you're sitting here begging me for money. Her face flushed red, but she didn't say anything. My lawyer slid a folder across the table. Here's our final offer. You walk away with nothing, or we take this to court, where you'll still walk away with nothing, except legal fees. Lauren's lawyer whispered something to her, but she wasn't listening. She was staring at me, her eyes filled with something that almost looked like regret. Almost. But I didn't care. She finally exhaled shakily. Fine, she muttered, signing the papers with a sharp flick of her wrist. It was over. As she slid the documents back across the table, she looked up at me one last time. I never thought you'd do this to me. I smirked. That was your first mistake. And with that, I walked out, leaving her behind for good. The moment I walked out of that office, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light, like a weight I had carried for far too long, had finally been lifted from my shoulders. Lauren was no longer my problem. No more walking on eggshells, no more forced smiles, no more feeling like I was never enough. I drove home with the windows down, letting the cool evening air wash over me. It was the first time in a long time that the silence in my car didn't feel heavy. I wasn't dreading what waited for me at home. There were no snide remarks, no passive-aggressive sighs, just peace, and I planned to make the most of it. The first thing I did was reclaim my space. Lauren had spent years making the house feel like it belonged to her, filling it with things that reflected her taste, her preferences, her idea of what our life should be. Now, that was over. I spent the next week getting rid of everything that reminded me of her. The sleek, modern furniture she insisted on? Gone. The overpriced artwork she claimed made us look sophisticated? Donated. Even the stupid scented candles she bought in bulk? Trashed. In their place, I created a home that actually felt like mine. A comfortable leather couch instead of the stiff one she had picked out for aesthetics. A real dining table, not the minimalist glass one she always complained was too fragile to use. I even turned the spare bedroom into a home gym, something she had always shot down because she thought it was tacky. For the first time in years, I was living in a space that actually made me happy. And that wasn't the only thing changing. My focus at work sharpened. Without Lauren constantly belittling my job, I found myself diving deeper into my career, taking risks I had hesitated to take before. I expanded my portfolio, landed a few big clients, and even started considering opening my own financial consulting firm. The more distance I put between myself and Lauren, the more I realized just how much she had held me back. And then, one night, as I sat at my favorite bar downtown, sipping whiskey and actually enjoying my own company, I ran into someone unexpected. Jake! I turned toward the voice and blinked in surprise. Mia? Mia had been one of Lauren's old college friends, someone I'd always gotten along with but never really spent much time around because Lauren had a weird competitive streak with her. She had always brushed her off, saying things like, Mia tries too hard, or she's one of those women who's too independent. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. Now, I understood exactly why Lauren had been so dismissive of her. Because Mia wasn't just independent. She was everything Lauren pretended to be. She smiled, taking the seat next to me. Wow, I almost didn't recognize you. You look good. I smirked. That's what freedom does for a man. She laughed, tilting her head. So, I heard about the divorce. I raised an eyebrow. And, she said, swirling her drink, I also heard about what really went down in Miami. I chuckled. Word travels fast. She leaned in slightly, eyes sparkling with amusement. You really set her up? I took a slow sip of my drink before answering. I just let her destroy herself. Mia let out a low whistle. Remind me never to get on your bad side. We talked for hours after that. About life, about work, about the insane ways people sabotage their own happiness. And somewhere between the second and third drink, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving. I was actually living. Lauren had spent years making me feel like I was less. Like I was stuck. Like I needed her to be somebody. But now, I was finally free to be me. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.